On December 18th, 1878, Joseph Stalin was born in the town of Gori, Georgia. His father was a cobbler who, after a downturn in his work, became a violent alcoholic, repeatedly beating his wife and Joseph. His mother was a seamstress who worked hard to make money for Joseph's education. His rough upbringing involved many fights in school, though he did receive good grades and was involved in priestly studies. As he got older, though, he participated in rebellious activities that often sent him to jail. As a young adult, he got involved in communist politics while he was working at an observatory. The job gave him a light workload that allowed him time to organize rebellious communist activities against the government. Joseph got elected into the Russian Social Democratic Labor Party in 1901. In 1902, he was arrested and sent to Siberia for leading a labor strike during the Russian Revolution. It was at this time that he adopted the name Stalin, meaning man of steel. After World War I, Stalin was appointed General Secretary for the Communist Party by its leader, Vladimir Lenin. This wasn't thought to be a particularly important position, but Stalin figured out that by appointing the right people into influential positions, they would give him their political support when he needed it. Because of this, when Lenin died in 1924, Stalin had enough supporters behind him to take that position of the leader of the Communist Party. After taking power, he ruthlessly arrested, exiled, and murdered his opponents, most notably Leon Trotsky, who was Lenin's heir apparent. Next, he went about reforming the Soviet economy along Marxist principles like collective ownership of land and equipment. This meant that he had to execute millions of prominent farmers, or kulaks. This led to a great famine in the Soviet Union, starving many more millions of people. Prior to Stalin's reign, Russian society was mainly agrarian, so he modernized the cities by building many heavy industry factories. Around this time, Germany started to act belligerently, which concerned Stalin. He tried to make defense agreements with England and France, but they did not come to terms quickly enough for him. Therefore, in 1939, he had Vyacheslav Molotov negotiate a non-aggression pact between the Soviet Union and Germany. Once this agreement was signed, Stalin invaded eastern Poland, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Finland, since Germany agreed not to contest him in these countries. However, on June 22, 1941, the Germans broke the aforementioned pact when they attacked the Soviet Union with the largest invasion force the world has ever seen. Stalin was shocked by this betrayal, which caused him to have a nervous breakdown over the first couple of weeks. The initial Soviet defenses were extremely disorganized, and it didn't help that Stalin had previously killed his military's most competent generals for fear of them trying to oust him by coup. By August, the Soviets started assembling a defense and evacuated their factories to the Ural Mountains, depriving the Germans of taking them. By the end of September, the Germans were within sight of Moscow and bombing it with the Luftwaffe. Because of their quick advance, Stalin's advisors suggest abandoning Moscow and counterattacking it from the east. Stalin instead chose to stay in the capital to encourage his troops. His decision succeeded. He ordered for Moscow to be actively defended with aggressive counterattacks and scorched earth tactics, like ripping up Soviet rail lines so that Germany couldn't use them. Eventually, Soviet resistance and the cold winter turned Germany back. By that time, America and Britain were also attacking Germany from the west, and Germany could not defend an attack on both fronts. When the war was over, Stalin shrewdly negotiated very generous amounts of territory for the Soviet Union. Just a couple years after the war, Stalin started an isolationist policy, called the Iron Curtain, and developed his own nuclear weapons to point at the United States. He did not live to see much of this Cold War that he created, though, because in March of 1953, he died under mysterious circumstances. The autopsy concluded that he died of a cerebral hemorrhage, although foul play has long been suspected. Joseph Stalin has a legacy of being one of the most ruthless dictators in history. At key moments in his life, he was unusually, almost miraculously, effective. but most people have described Stalin's policy and personality as being uncompromising, paranoid, and cold-hearted. Man of steel indeed.